Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sam. My pronouns are they, them. I am the Member Experience Manager here at Advent Co-working, a creative co-working community, event space, podcast studio, art gallery, yoga studio, most importantly, a community. And this is our weekly event, Advent Member Talks. Each week features a different Advent member on the topic of their choosing. It's just a really cool opportunity, one for our members to be able to skill share with the Advent community and also just like the greater Charlotte entrepreneurial community. And also we get to promote our members and their work, which we love doing. So today we are joined by Edgar, who's going to be telling us what we should not do after an accident. So Edgar, I'm going to hand it over to you. And folks watching, if you have any questions, just go ahead, type those into the comments, and we'll have a Q&A at the end.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sam. Great introduction. I appreciate you having me. Advent is such a good place to work, and I'm happy to be part of the community. So my name is Edgar Jimenez. I'm co-founder and attorney of Ola Blue Law. And also, I have a co-founder, co-partner. His name is Alan Blackwell. We're originally based out of Greensboro, and we partnered together to extend our services out into Charlotte. And we specialize in immigration, personal injury, workers' compensation, and business lit. I specialize in the immigration and workers' comp. My partner specializes in the business lit and personal injury. But we do share things. But a little bit about the business, not much. But one of the things that definitely stands out is what's Ola Blue, you know. And so the inspiration behind the name Ola Blue, really, much like our firm, our name is different from traditional firms. Most firms have the partners' last names. But Ola Blue is made of two languages: Ola, which is Spanish for wave, and blue for the English color. We did it that way to be inclusive, to be different, and two, to be inclusive, right? We wanted to make sure the English and the Spanish speaking population could easily reach out to us, and we felt like that was a good match. But enough about that. Let's get into the good stuff. So here are 5 things that you should not do following an accident. The 5 things are not really in order, except number 1. Number 1 is definitely very important, and that is, do not leave the scene without contacting the authorities. That is very, very important, and really for 2 reasons. 1, if you leave without contacting the authorities, you could potentially be charged. Usually you'll be charged with hit and run or something of that nature, so you definitely don't want that. And then 2, for the purposes of this discussion, it's the beginning of the personal injury or accident claim. And so really that's where it all starts, is the investigation part. It's the very, very beginning of the process. And many times the police report's the only neutral document that really is going to assist both parties with the claim. I am, and my partner, we're both plaintiff attorneys. So this is going to, all the information is going to come from a perspective of a plaintiff, meaning someone who's not at fault, someone who's asserting the claim against the at fault party. But the information goes both ways, even if you are at fault. I think these are some helpful tips. So the police report is very, very important. And one of the things that very few people know is that police reports are also known as crash reports, do not determine liability. Even though they do say who was at fault, and even if the at fault party is issued a ticket, it is not conclusive. Liability is reserved for the courts and the insurance carriers, period. So, someone who comes in always will say, oh, well, police report says I'm not at fault. But once you get into it, and then once the insurance carrier starts investigating, things can change. Also, when you speak with the authorities, never admit fault. Say as little as possible while still explaining what occurred. And this is very, very important because North Carolina is very conservative, as many know, and we follow the rule that's known as contributory negligence. There are only 5 other jurisdictions in the whole entire country that still follow this rule. I believe it's Alabama, DC, Virginia, Maryland, And I think I may be forgetting one other state or jurisdiction. But basically, what contributory negligence says is that if you somehow contribute to the accident, then you are considered at fault and you can't recover. It's commonly known as the 1% rule. And so it doesn't even matter if you're 1% at fault or 50% at fault. If you are at least 1%, you have no recovery. You can't assert a claim in North Carolina. It's very, very harsh because even if you can prove that you're just 1% at fault, you can't bring anything, and you can have a lot of damages to yourself, injuries, or damages to your vehicle. I'll give an example. I think it helps to provide an example so people can kind of understand the gravity of this rule. A lot of plaintiff attorneys have tried to change it, lobby, and come together to change it, but so we worked on one case where a client was sitting at a red light, and then he received the light turned green, and then he entered the intersection and was T-boned. Right. So just based on those facts, one can assume that he had a green light, and then the other person obviously had a red light, so they ran the red light. Well, they spoke to the authorities and everything, and then once the insurance got involved, or once the police arrived, and our client started speaking to the police officer, he said, "Well, it just turned green and I went." And there's case law in North Carolina that says a green light is not a command to enter the intersection or cross the intersection. It is permission to enter the intersection, which is very, very different, right? So you still have a duty to look both ways. If it turns green and you don't look both ways, and either you made a statement to a police officer or insurance carrier, they'll deny your claim because you've contributed to the accident. You're supposed to look both ways before crossing when it's safe to do so. So very, very, it seems crazy, and it is because only 4 other jurisdictions follow this rule, and it's a harsh rule, but it's the law in North Carolina, and so never admit fault. Number 2, do not speak with anyone following the accident, and if you do, then you should definitely be very cautious. It could either be a body shop or the insurance carrier. And you may be asking, well, how did they obtain my information? Well, I'll start with the body shops. Up until recently, Mecklenburg County and the surrounding counties, police reports are public. You can just walk down there, pull them, look at them. You can gather personal information. You have date of birth, address, telephone number, even your driver's license number. It's all public. Well, up until recently, someone filed a lawsuit against Mecklenburg and I think Guilford County for invasion of privacy. So they are suing the police departments and I believe LexisNexis, which is the online database that releases it. You just pay $6, so you don't even have to leave your house or office. You can just go online, search the records for accidents of that day, and then just contact people. And so now they're restricting that, which is good for us. I guess it's people, but harder for attorneys because it's hard for us to determine who's at fault or to kind of get an idea of who's at fault. And I'll discuss possible other issues with that with the remaining points. So body shops will pay, either they'll go down there and they used to pull the police reports themselves, or they would pay third party companies to go out there and gather and collect this data and sell it to you. And so they will contact you for you to come in and to repair the vehicle at their body shop. And that's an issue within itself because the body shops don't determine liability. They don't know what's going on. And once they pick it up or they take it, or you take it into the body shop, well, they start charging you daily storage until you repair the vehicle there. So if later on the insurance denies the claim, and then you're stuck with the body shop's storage fee. And it doesn't seem fair, right? Because they contacted you, they'll sweet talk you. They'll say, hey, we see that you're in an accident. They're at fault. We're going to take care of you. And then later on, they don't know the rules. Later on, maybe there's a contributory negligence rule issue. And so then carrier denies liability, and then we got to take it to trial. And you're stuck with storage costs, and it's $30 a day. If it's 10 days, that's already $300. So they can quickly add up. Number 3, I'm sorry. Let me also discuss the insurance carriers. They'll contact you if you don't have legal representation to determine or to investigate what happened. Really, what they're trying to do is find a way out. And they'll sweet talk you, say, hey, this call is recorded, but we're here to help and we just want to hear your side of the story. Well, if you don't know the rules, like I explained earlier with that green light situation, and the insurance agent or adjuster says, hey, well, did you look both ways before crossing? And you're like, no, I had a green light. I just entered the intersection. Contributory negligence, your whole case is ruined, typically speaking, unless there are some other factors involved. So that's a that's a big no-no. Do not speak with anyone. Um, okay, moving on to number 3. If your vehicle is a total loss or it's not drivable, do not leave it at the tow yard. A lot of times, out of safety, the police officers or the local authority will contact a tow company. If you don't do it yourself, they will do it and they'll remove the vehicle, and that tow company will take it to their salvage yard or tow yard. Well, everyone in North Carolina has the duty to mitigate their damages. All right, you can't just let the expenses and the damages continue to increase and accumulate and expect someone else to pay for it. Even though, let's assume that someone else is at fault, you still have to mitigate your damages. And so, for example, a lot of times the at-fault insurance company will only pay X amount of days for your vehicle while it's in storage. Usually it's 7 to 10 days. So if your vehicle's there for 30 days, those cut you a check or pay the tow company, for those 10 days, and then you're stuck with the remaining portion of the bill. That's it. I mean, there's nothing you can do. And a lot of times your insurance company won't even help you with that because you have to mitigate your damages. And it's easy. I see it all the time. I was T-boned, total loss. I don't even want the car. I'll just let the at-fault insurance pick it up whenever they want. I don't even want to do anything with it. Well, there's an issue with the investigation. A liability hasn't been finalized. They're only going to pay X days, and you're going to receive a bill from the tow company. So it's very unfortunate. Um, Number 4. So generally speaking, do not try to handle the case by yourself. Um, and if it's just property damage involved, meaning there are no personal injuries to you or the passengers, that may be okay. But if there are injuries, then you should contact an attorney ASAP. And the reason for that is because you need someone to help. Um, you need someone who knows the extent of the injuries, because there could be future medical bills that you want to take into account before settlement, and also there could be coverage issues. And I'm going to get into that next, which can get very, very complicated. And so it's important to hire someone who's very familiar with the process. Usually, attorneys will take into account the future medical bills, which could be a surgery, future physical therapy, any other treatments. Also lost wages, which will also include maybe your earning capacity. Your earning capacity has diminished because of the surgery or the injuries. Let's say, for example, you're a good tennis player. I mean, you make a lot of money playing tennis. You're a professional. Well, you had an accident, and now you had surgery on your elbow. You can't play the same. Well, now you're no longer earning the same prior to the accident. So we will take into consideration the your earning capacity to make sure you're compensated accordingly. So the other main thing too was the coverage. So this can get a little complicated, but really it really comes down to 2 things. Someone can either hit you and not have an active insurance policy. That's called uninsured motorist claim. And in order to move forward with that, you need a police report. That's why I said number 1 was to contact the local authorities, and you need a denial letter from that insurance company. Even though they don't have an active policy, they need to issue a denial letter. Then we can take both of those documents, the police report and the denial letter, over to your insurance to file the uninsured motorist claim, who will then pay for your property damage and bodily injury. So that's very, very important. The other one, which is a little more complicated, it's called underinsured motorist, which is basically someone who hits you and is at fault, has the minimum limit in North Carolina, which is $30,000 per person or $60,000 per accident. So that's the max they will pay is 60,000. Well, let's say there are multiple, either it's a multiple cars involved, so there's a lot of parties, or there are multiple passengers involved. Well, 60,000 is not going to cover everybody if a couple people have surgery or there's a catastrophic injury. It's just not going to cover anyone. Well, what happens? Well, by law, that's all they are required to do is just issue the 60,000. You'll receive a check, and that's it. Well, what about the remaining portion, right? Or the other passengers who only got a very, very little amount and it's not sufficient to cover the medical bills? Well, that's when you file a underinsured motorist claim with your insurance company to help offset those, right? So then you'll get a credit from the at fault party, and then your insurance company will kick in and they will pay those, assuming you have above minimum limits. That's the way it works. If you also have 30/60, and I'm going to discuss this later on why that's important, then that's it. There's no other way to recover. You can sue the at fault party directly, but I mean, if they have minimum limits, then more than likely don't have a lot of assets or money in the bank, so you're more than likely going to waste your time. Besides that, the agreement is that the insurance companies usually represent those individuals, so you probably won't get very far anyway. Okay, moving on to number 5. Do not ignore the medical bills, assuming there's a personal injury claim. Then maybe you went to the hospital, maybe the ambulance maybe took you there, they did x-rays. So the medical bills they're gonna pile up, and they're gonna send you the bill. Even after you retain an attorney and we send them a letter saying, hey, we now represent them, send us the bills and records, they don't care. They want their money. They just don't care. And they'll keep sending it over and over, and they'll give you warnings that, hey, we're last notice and we're going to send you to collections. And the thing is that you, as a patient or our client, you don't receive any money, or anyone doesn't receive any money until the case is settled. So that's going to be at the very, very end, and I'll discuss the process of a case here in a minute. But so the medical providers aren't going to get their payment until it could be months, depending on the injury. It could be years, and they're going to keep piling. And if you don't pay it, they're going to send you to collections, and it's going to affect your credit, right? So that's a big deal. And so the other thing that you can do to help you with that is you force the provider to bill your health insurance. Many times when someone has an accident and they're transported to the hospital, the healthcare provider, the medical provider, they don't want to pay. They don't want to bill your insurance, Blue Cross or United, because there's a contracted, pre-negotiated price with that. So they know it's all about the money. They're going to get way more money from keeping the bill at its max, not reducing it, and billing State Farm or AAA, one of those auto carriers, because they'll pay it in full. Versus Blue Cross says, "Hey, I see your bill's 10,000, but really we only think it's worth $2,000, or because we have a contract with you." And if it's Medicaid, Medicare, oh god, they pay cents on a dollar. What I'm trying to say is the medical providers will not do it. They will try to avoid this at all costs, and that can affect you, right? Because they keep piling. Remember, you're not going to get any money until we settle the case, and so it can affect your credit. But there is case law out there that says if these medical providers do not bill your insurance, knowing that you have health care within 1 year, which is the general rule for filing a claim with multiple carriers, insurance companies, then they lose their right to recover. And that's huge, right? Because you have to do things. This is something an attorney will do. We'll send multiple letters, right? So once that year lapse, then we will say, hey, yeah, we settled the case, but you don't get anything because we gave you X amount of notices. You have a year to file the claim. You refuse to, and there's case law in North Carolina that says you have forfeited your rights to recover because you haven't properly billed healthcare the way you're supposed to. So very, 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 very important. A couple things. So that's the top 5, and I'll summarize again. So number 1, contact the local authorities. Do not leave without contacting them. Number 2, do not speak with anyone following the accident. If you do, limit the conversation. Do not admit fault. Number 3, if your vehicle is a total loss or the vehicle is not drivable, do not leave it at the tow yard. Remove it as soon as possible. Keep those receipts, those expenses, save them, forward them to the insurance company, or if you hire an attorney, and then they will reimburse you. 4, do not try to handle, generally speaking, if it's something outside, if it's just PD, do not try to handle the case. PD, property damage, do not try to handle the case by yourself. Hire an attorney. There's a lot, you can jump on Google, read the reviews. and because it can get complicated with the injuries and the coverage. 5, do not ignore the medical bills because it can affect your credit. And it's easy to get overwhelmed with those. You're like, hey, it's not my fault. Someone else should pay for them. Why they're coming after me? The medical providers just don't care. And so don't ignore those. But I'm about to discuss a couple of things here that will help you with those. And that is MedPay, medical payments. It only costs a couple dollars a month, and you'll be surprised how many people avoid it because they want just the cheapest policy available. And medical payments, they come in different limits. It's under your policy, and it come under different limits. You have anywhere from 5,000 or 500 all the way up to 25,000. I've seen some up to 50,000, and it really is just 2 to 3, maybe even $5 extra per month. And the way it works is, for example, if the hospital sends you the bill, the hospital and the ambulance are the first to send you bills. They want their money. Once you receive those, you can forward them to your attorney, and then we would prepare a claim and file it on your behalf with your insurance. Because remember, it's under MedPay's under your insurance policy, and that carrier will then issue a MedPay payment, and then you can use that to offset those medical bills that are piling up until we settle the case. Or you can pocket the money. We don't care what you do with it, but you could pocket the money because the at-fault carrier is responsible for those bills. So why should the medical providers and the carriers receive an early payment, and the carriers receive a benefit, really, because you're going to pay down the balance. So a lot of clients like to keep it. But if you're afraid that that's going to hurt your credit, or the medical provider doesn't want to work with you, sometimes you can get on a payment plan. Then it's strongly encouraged to use it to pay your medical expenses. And the thing is, it's not going to affect your policy, right? A lot of people say, why are you opening up a claim under my insurance if I'm not at fault? Well, if you're not at fault, we have proof. The police report will help us. Then it was not going to affect your premium or policy. The worst, though, Allstate and Geico will try to increase your policy. And clients sometimes will call our office, hey, we received a letter that they're increasing our policy. I don't understand. I'm not at fault. They're saying it's because we filed a MedPay claim. Our office will call them ASAP and say, hey, you can't do that, and they'll fix it. They're the only ones I've seen that will truly try to take advantage of and it's sad, right? Because it's their client, it's their customer, but they still try to do it. They don't care. How much time do we have, Sam?
Let's say wrap up in a minute or so we'll get a few questions in.
Okay. All right. So as I explained, the minimum limit to North Carolina is 30/60. This is awful. It's pretty low, although it's pretty low nationwide. I think there are only a couple of states that are 50 or 100. Please just purchase anything above the minimum limits. They go anywhere. They can go all the way up to $1 million. And that puts you in control. You can never predict what someone else has, or the insurance may lapse. You can never calculate or predict that, but you can always protect yourself, and you're in control of that, right? So don't go cheap. I know sometimes it's difficult, but you never know, and it puts you in control. So I guess I'll go ahead and turn it over to Sam and asking the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's like really helpful information.
It's a lot of info.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Affirmed. I feel like affirmed that just like insurance is trash in general.
Yeah, they can be. Not all. There are some carriers that are much nicer and easier to play with than others. But yeah, that's typically how it goes. Yeah.
So we have quite a few questions, so we'll try and.
We have a lot of questions. Where are these? Where are they coming from? You can see them?
Yeah, so
okay.
I have some folks messaging me.
All right, come on with it, Sam.
I know. All right. Here's a good one. If you don't feel comfortable filing a police report against someone, is there any way to prove they are liable?
Yeah, we actually have a case that's very similar to that. What happened was our client was a passenger in a vehicle, and the driver lost control and hit a tree. Our client was injured. The police wasn't called because it wasn't necessary, and the driver actually filed the claim. She filed the claim. She says she called her insurance and said, "Hey, it was my fault. This is what happened. A lot of times if you're a passenger, it's rare that you're at fault. It's very, very rare, right? Because you're just sitting there. You have no control of the vehicle. So the answer to the question, yes, you can, right? If both parties are on the same page, and the at fault calls the insurance company and says, hey, this is what happened. Didn't call the police because I didn't feel like it was necessary, and they will usually honor that claim. Now, if it's Allstate or Geico, they'll find a way out. But yeah, you can. Someone can call and file a claim.
Gotcha. And at what point in the process, do you call the attorney? Like, should you contact your lawyer like before the police or insurance company, or?
I usually say not probably within a reasonable time following the accident, right? So you don't want to call them before the police. You want to call the police first. It's an emergency. Call them so they can send out the proper emergency team, right? The EMS, firefighters, whoever. So I would say, in order, police, and then from there, more than likely, I'd say contact an attorney. And it's not because attorneys are hungry in a way, but it's because you just in North Carolina, because of contributory negligence, whatever you say, you have no idea. You can say something as simple as, if the light turned green and I just went, I didn't even look both ways. Or I've even seen some where someone is head-on collision or a T-bone, and it's no issue with the lights or anything, but it is an intersection and they cross, and they said, oh, boom, I just got hit. The car came out of nowhere. No, you have a duty to be on the lookout. And if you say the car came out of nowhere, you're basically admitting that you weren't paying attention. And little things like that, without even knowing, can harm your case. So that's why I say contact an attorney as soon as possible to help you with issues with contributory negligence. Really is the main concern.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So one more question, so we have time, and then I'm going to ask for your contact info so that way folks can get in touch with you with more questions that may come up. So we'll do an easy one. How do you remove your car from the tow yard if it is too damaged to drive?
Well, you have to get it towed, right? So there's going to be a fee associated from the accident to the tow yard. That's one tow service. So there'll be that, and then you'll pay that probably the same tow company, or maybe you'll call your insurance company and file a collision claim that's under your insurance. But assuming you don't have it, or for whatever reason, you can pay that tow company directly, have them move the car from their tow yard to your house or wherever. It's a storage-free facility, and you just have to pay for it out of pocket. Yep.
Okay. Got it.
Yep. And I will say too, one last thing. You got to move quickly with the tow, because the storage costs per day, and it could be as high as, I've seen it, $40 per day, right? And so if you don't move quickly, they can add up quickly. And again, the insurance is only going to pay 7 to 10 days, and after that, you're on your own, and they can add up quickly. I've seen them breach thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We're out of time. This is a really good question that came. It's what's the best way to evaluate potential attorneys? So maybe we'll have to have you back.
Yeah.
Evaluating.
Wait, but like, what are they asking? Like, how to find a good one, I guess?
Yeah, like after. So it's the full question is, if you're looking for an attorney after an accident, how do you avoid the ambulance chasers?
So remember when I was describing, we'll expand on this, but I do want to just put in given a little information. Remember how I was explaining the police reports, at least in Mecklenburg and Guilford County, were public. A lot of attorneys will send you junk mail, right? So once you once you have an accident, not too long after that, most attorneys will hire a company and they'll send you junk mail saying, hey, give us a call, we can help you. So you want to stay away from the junk mail attorneys. And from there, really, I guess you got to read the reviews, that's, it's kind of hard, but I would read reviews, stay away from the junk mail attorneys, and really referrals would be a great way to start as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all this information.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of information.
Yeah, let's have another one where, we can expand on the services of an attorney.
Yeah, absolutely. So how can folks, if they want to learn more, if they want to get in touch with you, how can they do that? So
I would say go to our website. We are almost done with it. We should be done with it within the next 2 weeks. That's olablue.com. Within our website, you'll find all of our contact info for the Greensboro location and the Charlotte location. You'll find my email along with my partner's email and the social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and we will start a YouTube channel as well. So that's a good way to reach us. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who's joined us today and for everyone who's going to watch this later. We do post all of our Advent member talks on our YouTube channel, Advent Co-working Videos, so you can go back, see previous talks. And if you're an Advent member and you haven't given a talk, hit me up. We would love to promote you and learn from you. So thank you, Edgar.
It was fun. Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you all for watching. And any other questions, shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer. I'm here to educate the community. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Have a good night, y'all.
Thanks.